Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The low hum of projectors filled the room, beams of satellite images flickering across the wall, but her words had slipped past the air like they didn't matter. She sat at the far end, quiet, composed, her hands flat on the table. She wasn't new. She wasn't untested. She had carried bodies out of blackened alleys, patched bleeding comrades with her own shirt sleeves, pulled triggers that echoed through her nights. Yet here, in this sterile room of command voices and pointed fingers, it was as if she were invisible. She stared at the shifting lines on the screen, terrain maps, heat signatures, red circles marking danger zones. The mission had weight. They all felt it. But none of them saw the way her jaw tightened when the commander brushed past her suggestion. None of them noticed her silence wasn't consent. It was calculation. Because there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. A cough broke the monotony. A young analyst, barely old enough to shave, pushed his glasses up and muttered something about weather interference. Someone else laughed it off. A captain shook his head. The conversation went back to the main objective: intercept, extract, return. Simple words that never were. She shifted her gaze to the man standing at the head of the table. His voice was steady, confident, a tone designed to be obeyed. But her thoughts drifted elsewhere, to the voice she hadn't heard in years, her father's, a gravelly warning in her memory. You don't need to shout to be heard, but when you do speak, make sure it breaks the air. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was waiting. The meeting ended with chairs scraping against tile, boots clicking on concrete, papers rustled, orders signed. Everyone filed out with the same mechanical rhythm of men and women carrying duty on their shoulders. She lingered, watching the images fade from the wall until only a dull glow remained. Alone, she whispered what she hadn't dared to say out loud. "They're walking into a trap." The air conditioner hummed in reply. She pressed her palms against the cool metal table and closed her eyes. She had seen it, not in the data, not in the maps, but in the silences, the gaps between intel reports. It was instinct, the same instinct that had saved her more than once. But instinct was not enough for command. They wanted evidence, numbers, proof. And so she stayed quiet, for now. The air outside the bunker was heavy with the scent of dust and fuel. Helicopters rested like mechanical beasts on the pad, their blades ticking as they cooled. Soldiers moved in patterns, their laughter forced, their nerves hidden behind routine. She walked past them, helmet under her arm, rifle strapped across her back, eyes locked on the horizon where the sun was sinking low. One of them, a broad-shouldered sergeant with scarred knuckles, jogged up beside her. "You good?" he asked, too casual, like small talk could mend the unease etched in her posture. "Always," she said. The word came out clipped, a reflex more than truth. He smirked, unconvinced. "You ever think they'd listen if you spoke up more?" Her lips curled faintly. "And say what? That I see ghosts where they see data." The sergeant shrugged. "Sometimes ghosts are real." He left her with that thought. She held it, turning it over like a stone in her palm, because ghosts were real. She had one that walked beside her every time she strapped in. The memory of a friend, no more than a friend, who hadn't made it back from the last mission. His laugh still rang in her ears when the nights grew long. She had told herself his death was unavoidable, that she had done everything she could. But deep down, she wondered if her silence then had cost him too. The chopper door slammed. She climbed in, the vibrations rattling through her bones as the engine roared to life. The crew strapped in, eyes hidden behind tinted goggles, faces blank as stone. She checked her rifle, then the scope, her fingers brushing the cool steel like an old prayer. Every motion was ritual, clean, precise. It kept her from thinking too much. But tonight, thinking was all she could do. The flight stretched over barren hills, shadows long and sharp beneath the dying light. She watched the ground slip past, villages clustered like whispers, roads etched like scars. The headset crackled with chatter, coordinates, call signs, clipped affirmations. Her squad leader's voice came through steady, reassuring, the kind of voice people followed without question. She envied that, Wind howled through the open doors. The smell of kerosene mixed with sweat and dust. She adjusted her headset, but the noise wasn't what unsettled her. It was the quiet in her chest, the stillness before something breaks. She glanced around. The sergeant from earlier leaned back, eyes closed, pretending to rest. Across from him, a medic thumbed through a small notebook, the edges worn soft from handling. He wasn't reading, just holding it, like the weight of the paper tethered him to something beyond this war. She wondered what was written inside. Letters never sent. Names of the ones he couldn't save. Everyone carried something. Some wore it loud. Others buried it deep. She carried hers in silence, tucked beneath layers of discipline and steel. The pilot's voice cut through. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to insertion. 10 minutes until everything she feared might come true. Her hand drifted to her pocket. Inside was a folded piece of paper, edges frayed, a letter she'd never delivered. The words inside weren't tactical, weren't orders. They were personal, a confession. She traced the fold with her thumb, then shoved it back. Not tonight. The landing zone came into view, a clearing carved from rock and dirt, lit only by moonlight. The chopper descended, stirring dust clouds that clawed at their faces. She slid out first, boots crunching against gravel, rifle raised. The air was sharp, thin. Every sense screamed for attention. The others followed, forming a perimeter, eyes scanning shadows that shifted too easily. She knelt, checked her scope again, heartbeat steady but heavy. The squad leader's hand went up. Advance. They moved in silence, boots soft against the earth, rifles like extensions of their arms. Every sound was amplified, the rustle of a leaf, the crack of a distant branch, the faint hiss of wind through stone. Her chest tightened. Something was wrong, too still, too clean. She wanted to speak, to say what had been burning in her throat since the briefing, but the words caught. Her silence was a wall, and behind it fear, not fear for herself, fear of being dismissed again, fear of being wrong. They reached the ridge. Below, a cluster of lights flickered the target compound. Shapes moved in the dark, too many to count. She felt it in her gut. An ambush. Her finger twitched on the trigger. Her mouth opened. But before she could speak, the radio crackled with command's voice, calm and assured. Proceed. The squad leader nodded, signaling the advance. Her silence screamed inside her. And then from the shadows below, the first shot rang out. The first shot tore the night apart. It wasn't theirs. A muzzle flash sparked from the ridgeline opposite, sudden, precise. Then another. The squad dove for cover, boots grinding against stone, breaths caught between panic and training. She rolled behind a jagged boulder, the crack of bullets echoing off the hills. Gravel stung her cheek. Her scope was up before thought could catch up. Shadows flickered, half-seen figures darting between rocks. Too many, more than intel claimed. Her chest tightened. She had been right. This was no extraction. This was a slaughter waiting to happen. The squad leader's voice cut through, sharp. Return fire. Gunfire answered the night, a brutal rhythm of metal and fury. Sparks erupted as rounds struck stone. The medic cursed under his breath, fumbling for cover, notebook pressed tight against his vest. The sergeant beside her barked something she didn't hear. All she heard was her own breath, heavy, uneven. She could speak now, shout the truth, tell them this was wrong, but the moment slipped as another volley rained down, forcing them lower into the earth. Her silence, again, was a prison. Time slowed. She steadied her rifle, exhaled, found her mark. The scope narrowed the chaos into clarity. One shadow froze just long enough. She squeezed the trigger. The figure collapsed. The recoil jolted her shoulder, familiar, grounding. She didn't celebrate. There was no victory in this, only necessity. More figures emerged. They moved with purpose, not desperation. This wasn't a random skirmish. They had been waiting, prepared. The squad leader cursed, pressed against the dirt. His face was calm, but his eyes betrayed the truth. They were outnumbered. She shifted, found another target, fired. A second man fell. Her scope tracked movement, but her mind slipped elsewhere to that letter in her pocket. The one she hadn't delivered. She thought of the words inside, the admission she hadn't been brave enough to voice. And here she was again, silent when it mattered most. The memory of her father's words whispered back, "When you do speak, make sure it breaks the air." Her lips parted. "Fall back," she shouted, voice cutting through the roar of gunfire. The sergeant turned, startled not at the command but at the force in her voice. For a moment, the firefight seemed to pause around them. Then the squad leader's jaw tightened. "Negative, hold position." And just like that, her words dissolved into the night. Minutes bled into eternity. The squad dug in, firing in controlled bursts, conserving ammo, every shot calculated. She worked mechanically, eyes scanning, fingers squeezing, bodies dropping in her scope. But for every one she silenced, two more emerged. The medic crawled closer, blood streaking down his sleeve. "We can't hold this," he shouted, voice cracking. His eyes darted to her, pleading, as if she held some answer none of them did. She had no answer, only the weight in her chest. A sudden explosion ripped through the ridge above, showering them with dirt and rock. Her ears rang, sound collapsing into muffled thuds. The world spun. She coughed, grit in her throat, vision blurred. When it cleared, she saw him. The sergeant, the one who had told her ghosts could be real, lay sprawled, unmoving. His helmet had rolled away, face pale under the moonlight. Her body moved before thought. She scrambled to him, hands pressing against his chest, searching for breath, for life. Nothing, just silence. Her stomach clenched, rage surged. She gripped her rifle, scope locking onto the flash that had fired the shot. Breath steady, finger tight. She fired, the shadow crumpled. But the satisfaction was hollow. His absence was louder than the battle itself. They pulled back into a shallow depression, the squad leader barking orders, voice hoarse. The medic's hands shook as he patched another man's leg. Blood soaked the dirt, dark under the moon. She crouched low, chest heaving, her hands still stained from the sergeant's body. This was wrong, all of it. She spoke again, lower this time but firm, every syllable measured. "We need extraction, now. If we push forward, we're dead." The squad leader shot her a glare. "Our orders are clear. The package is inside that compound." Her jaw tightened. Orders don't mean anything if no one survives to carry them out. For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the medic's ragged breathing. Then command's voice crackled through the radio, cold, detached. "Proceed as planned." She wanted to scream, to throw the radio into the dirt, but she swallowed it. Silence again. The squad leader looked away, signaling for them to move. She followed not because she believed, but because she couldn't abandon them. Not yet. They descended the ridge, every step heavy, rifles raised. The compound loomed ahead, lights flickering, walls jagged with shadows. Each window, each corner felt like an eye watching. She kept her scope trained, scanning, breath tight. The night pressed in, thick and suffocating. A whisper of wind carried the faintest sound, a cry, human, distorted by distance. Her chest constricted. A hostage, maybe more, that was the package, the reason they were here. It wasn't just an op, it was people, lives. And yet the trap was closing. She could feel it. They breached the outer wall, boots slamming against concrete, rifles sweeping the corners. The smell hit first, oil, sweat, rot. Her stomach twisted. Inside, shadows danced along flickering bulbs. A corridor stretched ahead, narrow, suffocating. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of inevitability. The squad leader moved point. She followed close, finger on trigger, eyes sharp. Then a door slammed open. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the confined space. She dropped, rolling to the side, returning fire. Sparks showered from the walls. The medic screamed, falling back, blood streaking his leg. She shot twice, silence falling in the aftermath. The bodies slumped, smoke rising from their rifles. Her chest heaved, Her ears rang. The smell of cordite burned her throat. But beneath the ringing she heard it again. That cry clearer now, weak, desperate. A child's voice. Her blood ran cold. The squad regrouped, breaths harsh, eyes wide. The squad leader pressed forward, mission still alive in his veins. But she froze, staring down the dark corridor where the sound had come from. A memory surged her younger brother, years ago, clutching her hand during storms. His voice trembling, "Don't let go." She had promised she wouldn't, but she had. The night he died, she had been miles away, in training, chasing orders instead of holding his hand. The guilt had never left. And now here it was again, a voice, a child alone. Her silence shattered. "There's a kid in here," she said, her tone final, unyielding. The squad leader hesitated, eyes narrowing. "Our target is the package, not." She cut him off, her voice sharp, commanding, undeniable. "I said there's a kid." For the first time, the room listened. The air seemed to still. Her silence had broken. How could a child's voice cut sharper than gunfire? For a moment the squad froze in the dim corridor, boots heavy against concrete, breaths rough through clenched teeth. The echo of combat still lingered in the air, smoke curling, shell casings rolling. But that sound, faint and trembling, carried through the silence like it didn't belong in this place. She tightened her grip on the rifle, eyes narrowing. "There's a kid," she repeated, louder this time. The squad leader's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to her, then to the rest of the team. He didn't have to say it, they all knew what command would say. Mission first. Package first. Civilians were noise, complications, weight that slowed the machine. But war wasn't a machine to her, not anymore. She took a step toward the corridor. The squad leader's hand shot out, blocking her chest. "Stay on task." Her stare didn't waver. "You want me to ignore it?" His silence was answer enough. The medic groaned from where he leaned against the wall, blood seeping through a bandage on his leg. He lifted his head, eyes tired but clear. "She's right. If there's a kid, we don't walk past it." That tipped the silence. The rest of the squad shifted, uneasy. None spoke, but their postures betrayed them. They weren't machines either. They were people. People who knew ghosts would follow them if they left a child behind. The squad leader lowered his hand. His voice was sharp, clipped, but quieter than before. 2 minutes, no more. She nodded once, that was enough. The corridor stretched like a wound, air heavy with the stench of oil and dust. She led, rifle raised, every nerve screaming. The sound came again, softer now, as if whoever made it was running out of strength. She stopped at a rusted door, paint peeled. Scratches lined the surface, small, frantic, her throat tightened. The handle was cold under her glove. She pushed. The hinges groaned, loud enough to make her wince. Inside, the light was dim, a single bulb swinging. Shadows swayed across the walls, and in the corner a child. No older than 8, knees tucked to chest, eyes wide and hollow. Dirt smeared across his face. His lips moved, but no words came, only the raw rasp of fear. Her chest clenched. The rifle sagged for just a second before she caught herself. She lowered it, kneeling slowly, hands open. "It's okay," she whispered. Her voice cracked in her own ears. She hadn't spoken like that in years, soft, gentle. The boy flinched, pressing tighter against the wall. Behind her the squad waited, rifles raised, eyes darting. They were soldiers, not caretakers. This wasn't their world. But it was hers, at least it had been once. She reached into her vest, pulling free a canteen. Unscrewing the cap, she slid it across the floor. The boy's eyes flicked to it, hesitant, then back to her. "It's water," she said softly. "You can take it." His fingers trembled as they reached out, snatching it quick, clutching it to his chest. He drank in small, desperate gulps, water spilling down his chin. Her throat burned watching him. She remembered another child, another storm, a promise she hadn't kept. Don't let go, and she had. The boy's eyes lifted, meeting hers for the first time. They were raw, frightened, but alive. She exhaled slowly. "You're safe now." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. The squad leader stepped forward. "We don't have time." His tone was flat, final. Her jaw tightened. "He comes with us." "That's not the mission." "Neither was burying the sergeant back there," she shot back, sharper than she meant. Silence. The squad leader's face hardened, but he didn't argue. He didn't have to. Command's voice cracked over the radio before he could speak. "Status." The squad leader hesitated, eyes on her. She shook her head slowly, silently. "Not yet. Don't tell them." "Proceeding to objective," he answered instead. The line went dead. She turned back to the boy, motioning gently. "Come on, stay close." He stood on shaky legs, too thin, clothes torn. His hand reached out instinctively, then stopped halfway, frozen in the air. She saw it. That reflex. That need for someone to hold. Her chest ached. Slowly she extended her hand. His small fingers closed around hers. For the first time in years, she held a hand that wasn't a weapon. They moved back into the compound, tighter now, every corner more dangerous with the weight they carried. The boy's breaths came fast, sharp, his grip tightening whenever a shadow moved. The medic limped at the rear, teeth clenched against pain. She caught his eyes once. He gave a faint nod, not approval, not judgment, just acknowledgement. He understood. The deeper they went, the more she felt the trap closing. Too quiet, too staged. She knew this wasn't over. And then from the stairwell ahead came voices, not English, harsh, fast, commanding. The squad froze, pressing against the walls, rifles raised. She crouched low, the boy trembling beside her, his small fingers digging into her glove. She leaned close, whispering, "Close your eyes, don't look." His lashes fluttered shut. The first figure appeared at the top of the stairs, rifle slung, unaware. She didn't wait. Her shot cracked, the man dropping before his body hit the ground. Chaos erupted. More boots thundered down the stairs, more shouts, more gunfire. The corridor exploded with noise. Muzzle flashes lit the walls. Bullets sparked against concrete. The boy screamed, curling against her. She shielded him with her body, firing blind down the hall. The squad returned fire, the air thick with smoke and screams. Her ears rang. Her throat burned from the stench. The world shrank to flashes of light and the thud of recoil. And then silence. She blinked, chest heaving. The stairwell was littered with bodies. Smoke hung in the air like a shroud. The boy's sobs shook against her vest. She pressed a hand to his head, holding him close. Her silence wasn't empty now, it was protection. The squad leader broke it first. "We're out of time, the package is still ahead." She lifted her eyes, still holding the boy. "What if the package isn't what they told us?" He frowned. "What are you saying?" She looked down at the boy. His wrists bore faint marks, bindings, restraints. He wasn't random, he was part of this. Maybe the center of it. Her mind raced. Intel gaps, silence in the reports. The way Command's voice carried no hesitation, no doubt. They had known. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't an extraction. This was a cover-up. And the boy was proof. She swallowed hard, voice low, steady. "We're not leaving him, not for them, not for anyone." The squad leader's stare cut deep, but he didn't argue. Because in that moment, even he knew her voice wasn't silence anymore. It was command. They pushed deeper, but every step carried more weight. The boy clung tighter, his small breaths warm against her vest. Each corner, each shadow, felt like a test, not of their training, but of their humanity. She thought of her brother again, his laugh, his hand in hers, the storm, the night she wasn't there. This was her chance to keep a promise, even if it wasn't to him. Her silence had been survival, but now her voice was the only thing standing between the boy and the machine that would consume him. The mission hadn't changed, but she had. And for the first time, the squad knew it too. What mattered more, the mission, or the boy clinging to her vest? That question hung in the silence like smoke, thicker than the gunpowder still choking the air. No one said it out loud, but it was there. In the squad leader's clenched jaw, in the medic's blood-soaked bandage, in the boy, trembling breath against her chest. Command's voice cracked through the radio again, sharp, detached, status. The squad leader hesitated, eyes flicking to her. Her stare cut through him. If he told the truth, they'd order her to leave the boy. If he lied, he'd be disobeying. She saw the war in his face. Still advancing, he said finally, voice flat. A pause, then, proceed to objective, package priority. The line went dead. Her stomach tightened. Package priority. She had heard those words before, years ago, when her brother's evacuation was delayed for a priority target. By the time they cleared the way, it was too late. She looked down at the boy. His thin fingers clutched her vest straps, knuckles pale. Package priority. Not this time. The compound's corridors twisted deeper, the air growing heavier with each step. Their boots left smears in the dust, prints that felt like signatures on a page they couldn't erase. Every door could hide a threat. Every shadow could be another ghost waiting to be born. The medic limped at the rear, face pale. Blood had soaked through the bandage, dark against the fabric. Yet he didn't complain. He kept moving, one hand pressed tight against his wound, the other gripping his rifle. She slowed once, falling back beside him. You're losing too much. His lips twitched, the closest thing to a smile. Not the first time, not the last. Her chest tightened. You need a vac. And leave you here, he shook his head. Not happening. For a moment his eyes softened, flicking to the boy. Besides, he needs someone to patch him up if it comes to that, and you're not exactly gentle. She almost laughed, almost, but the sound caught in her throat, heavy, strangled. The boy looked up at her then, wide eyes glistening. Not with tears, those had dried. What remained was something harder, fear and trust tangled together. She couldn't fail him, not like before. The stairwell at the end of the hall groaned under their boots as they ascended. Each step creaked like a warning. The squad leader raised a fist, halting them. 2 rooms ahead, he whispered. Intel says package is inside the north chamber. Her jaw clenched. Intel. The same intel that had walked them into an ambush, cost them the sergeant, nearly bled the medic dry. And now they were supposed to trust it again. She shifted the boy behind her, lowering her voice. Intel's wrong. It's always been wrong. The squad leader's eyes hardened. You have no proof. Her voice was low, steady, cutting through the air. I don't need proof. I can feel it. That's what got us this far alive. He didn't answer, not because she was wrong, but because she was. The squad stacked along the wall outside the chamber. The heavy steel door loomed, light seeping through its cracks. The boy's breath quickened, shallow, ragged. His fingers dug into her vest, his eyes locked on the door like it was a nightmare he recognized. Her chest ached, he knew what was inside. She knelt eye level with him, voice soft. What's in there? His lips trembled. He whispered one word. Experiment. Her blood ran cold. The squad leader glanced sharply, confusion flashing across his face. What did he say? She rose, voice hard. They're not here for a rescue. They're here to clean this place, wipe it out. The medic's hand froze on his rifle. His face paled further. Command sent us to kill witnesses. The silence was heavier than gunfire. The squad leader's radio crackled again as if on cue. Proceed, eliminate hostiles, secure package. But the word eliminate clung to the air, thick, poisonous. She met the squad leader's stare, her voice low but sharp enough to cut. If we open that door, we're part of it. The boy's hand clung tighter to hers. His small fingers were shaking, but his grip was iron. She saw her brother in that grip, his last night, his fear, his trust. Her voice broke through, steady, strong. We're not their cleaners. The squad leader looked torn, trapped between duty and the weight of her words. He had lived by the chain of command his whole life, but tonight the chain was choking. Finally he exhaled. "So what do you suggest?" Her silence lingered heavy. "Then we take him, we get out." "And the package?" Her eyes narrowed. Maybe the package was never theirs to have. The argument never reached its end. The steel door slammed open from inside, light spilling into the hall. Figures poured out, armed, armored, eyes burning. The firefight ignited instantly. Bullets shredded plaster, sparks showered from concrete. The squad dove for cover, rifles spitting fire. She pulled the boy behind a support pillar, body shielding him as rounds cracked inches away. Her scope snapped up. One target down. Another. Her hands moved with brutal precision, but her heart pounded for the boy pressed into her side. The medic fired from the floor, grunting with pain, blood spreading faster. His shots were clean, desperate, buying seconds they didn't have. The squad leader bellowed orders, voice raw, but even he knew they weren't winning this fight, not head-on. She scanned the hall. There a service stairwell half hidden in shadow, a way out. But it meant disobeying, leaving the package. She looked at the boy. His small hands trembled against her vest. His eyes begged without words. The decision wasn't tactical, it was human. She grabbed the medic's arm, dragging him toward the stairwell. "Move." The squad leader shouted after her, fury and fear tangled in his voice. "That's desertion." Her answer was a single line, sharp as a blade. "That's survival." The stairwell swallowed them in darkness, gunfire echoing behind. Each step down rattled with urgency, each breath a ragged reminder of how close death pressed. The medic stumbled, his weight heavy against her shoulder, but she didn't let go. The boy clung to her back, arms tight around her neck. Every instinct screamed to run faster, but discipline kept her steady. One step at a time. Don't fall, don't break. When they burst into the lower level, the air was damp, thick with mold. Pipes groaned overhead. The dim emergency lights flickered red, painting the corridor in a pulsing heartbeat. The medic collapsed against the wall, sliding down with a groan. She crouched beside him, pressing hard against his wound. His jaw clenched, sweat streaking his face. "You should have left me," he rasped. Her eyes burned. "I don't leave people." He gave a weak chuckle, bitter but grateful. "That's gonna get you killed." She shook her head. "No, that's the only reason I'm still alive." The boy sat across from them, small chest rising fast, eyes darting between them. For the first time he spoke more than a word. "They hurt people in the rooms. They made them change." Her stomach twisted. She didn't need details. The truth was already carved into his hollow face. The medic swallowed hard, his eyes closing briefly. "So that's the package." She looked at the boy again. "No, this is the package, and he's coming with us." The words felt final, a vow. And as she said them, she realized something. Her silence had been fear. Her voice was defiance. And tonight, defiance was survival. Above them, gunfire still raged. Boots thundered. Command's voice crackled over the radio again, demanding updates. She didn't answer. For the first time in years, she wasn't silent. She was refusing. And that refusal would change everything. The stairwell's steel door groaned shut behind them, muffling the storm of gunfire above. For the first time since entering the compound, silence wrapped around her squad, thick, suffocating, alive. It didn't feel like safety. It felt like exile. The medic sat slumped against the wall, his blood pooling in slow, stubborn waves. His face was pale as bone, eyes glazed but still sharp enough to hold her gaze. He didn't need to say it. He knew what command would call them now. "Deserters." The boy crouched close, small hands trembling but steady enough to press against the medic's wound like he had seen her do. She caught the sight and her chest tightened. Already, the child was learning war. The radio hissed again. Command's voice sliced through the static, cold and clipped. "Alpha Team, report." She froze. The squad leader had the radio back upstairs. He'd answer, and when he did, her name would burn like a curse in Command's mouth. Seconds stretched. Her throat ached. She almost reached for the mic, but she knew what silence meant in their language: guilt. Then, through the static, negative on objective, the squad leader's voice, tight, bitter, alive. Her chest lurched. He hadn't given her away yet. "Proceed until secured," Command ordered. "All assets expendable. Do you understand?" The pause on the line spoke louder than words. Then, affirmative. The radio clicked off. She exhaled slowly, anger pressing hard into her ribs. "All assets expendable." That was Command's answer, always. They moved through the underlevels cautiously. Pipes hissed above, leaking condensation that dripped in a steady rhythm. Their footsteps echoed down corridors painted with rust and mold. The medic limped, leaning heavy on her shoulder. Each step was a battle for him. His blood left a trail she hated but couldn't stop. The boy stayed close, silent now, his wide eyes darting to every shadow. She noticed he carried himself differently than before, not just with fear, but with awareness, as if every sound was a map in his head. He had lived here too long. "Exit," she whispered. He pointed down a side hall without hesitation. She believed him more than any intel sheet Command had ever fed her. At the junction, her earpiece crackled again. A new voice, one she recognized. "Specialist," it said, sharp, seething. "You've broken formation. This is dereliction." The lieutenant, the one who had signed off on the mission. Her jaw locked. She didn't answer. "You're harboring civilian liability," the voice pressed. "Release the subject immediately. Failure to comply will result in immediate court-martial and dishonorable discharge. Do you understand?" Her hand curled tight around her rifle. "Release the subject." The words made the boy sound less than human, less than a name. The medic's rasp broke the silence. "Court-martial. If we live long enough for paperwork, I'll frame it." She almost smiled, almost. She reached to her earpiece, pressing the transmit. Her voice was steady, clear, negative. The silence on the line was sharp, like glass breaking. Then the lieutenant's voice returned, colder. "Then you're already dead." The channel cut. The boy's hand slipped into hers. His palm was damp, small, shaking. She tightened her grip, not letting go. They pressed onward. The air grew heavier, the corridors narrowing into a labyrinth of service tunnels. The medic slowed, every step a struggle. His face was chalk white, breaths ragged. Finally he stopped, collapsed against the wall, sliding down. She crouched, ripping fresh bandage from her pack, pressing it hard. His blood soaked through in seconds. His hand caught hers, weak but insistent. "Enough," he whispered. Her throat burned. "I can still." "You can't stop it." His voice was faint, breaking, but his eyes were clear. "Don't waste it, get him out." She shook her head, furious. "No, you don't get to choose that, not here." His lips twitched in a pained half-smile. "Funny, thought I lost my right to choose when I signed up." Tears stung her eyes, hot, unwanted. She pressed harder, as if sheer will could stop the bleeding. But he was slipping, the life draining from him with every breath. The boy watched in silence, eyes wide, unblinking. She hated that he had to see this. The medic's last words were almost a whisper. "Don't let them turn him into a file." Then he was gone. Her chest cracked open. She pressed her forehead to his still shoulder, breath shaking. For a moment the war outside ceased. There was only loss. Then the boy's hand tugged at her sleeve. Small, gentle, grounding. She lifted her head. Her silence had always been armor. Now it felt like chains. She whispered, voice raw, trembling but alive, "I won't." And in that vow she felt something shift. They left the medic's body behind. She hated it, hated herself for it, but the boy needed her alive. She whispered a soldier's goodbye, the words shaking but real. Then they kept moving. Every step echoed heavier now. Not just her boots, but the weight of carrying two lives, one gone, one clinging. The tunnels twisted toward daylight. She could smell it, faint, clean, distant, a promise. But before the exit she froze, voices ahead, heavy boots. Not rebels, not civilians, command's own kill team. Her stomach dropped. They had sent soldiers after her, not for rebels, not for the package, for her. The boy stiffened, eyes wide. He pressed closer to her side. She steadied her breath. Her rifle was loaded, her arms steady, but the truth was heavier than any weapon. She wasn't fighting rebels anymore. She was fighting her own. The corridor was narrow, choke-pointed. She pressed the boy back against the wall, her body between him and the sound. The kill team drew closer, disciplined steps, no hesitation. She felt the old fear rising, the silence she had lived in for years, the obedience, the acceptance. But then she looked down, at the boy's hand gripping hers, at the medic's blood still drying on her sleeve. And she knew. Silence was death, voice was life. She leaned close, whispering into the boy's ear, "When I say run, you don't look back, understand." His eyes were huge, terrified, but he nodded. Her chest swelled, not with fear, with something sharper. Defiance. The kill team rounded the corner. She opened fire. The tunnel lit with muzzle flash, deafening thunder. Sparks exploded from pipes, bullets tearing steel and concrete. Shadows flickered like ghosts. She moved with ruthless precision, every shot counting, every breath controlled. Years of training turned into survival. The boy sprinted past, small frame darting through the chaos. She covered him, her body a shield, her rifle spitting fire. One soldier fell, another, but more pressed forward, relentless, a wall of steel and command. Her magazine clicked empty. She slammed in a new one, hands steady though her heart roared. The boy's voice echoed from ahead, "This way." She followed. They broke through the final corridor, light spilling in like salvation. The exit, jagged concrete, open sky beyond. But between them and freedom, two soldiers blocked the way. Her rifle rose, empty click. She braced, ready to fight barehanded if she had to. But then the boy moved first. He grabbed a loose pipe from the ground and swung with all his small strength, smashing it against one soldier's leg. The man stumbled, just enough. She surged forward, slamming into him, ripping his rifle free, firing point-blank into the second. The tunnel filled with thunder. Then silence. Real silence. The soldiers were down, the path open. The boy dropped the pipe, chest heaving, eyes wide. She stared at him, not just at his fear, but at the fire behind it. Her voice broke through, rough but certain. "You're braver than most soldiers I've ever known." He didn't answer, he just reached for her hand. And together they stepped into the light. Behind them the compound roared with gunfire and fury. Ahead, the world stretched vast and unknown. They weren't free yet. Command would hunt them, brand them traitors, strip them of name, rank, home. But the boy's hand was warm in hers, and for the first time her silence didn't feel like weakness. It felt like defiance. And defiance was survival. The daylight hit like a blade, too bright, too raw. After hours in tunnels and blood-stained corridors, the sky above felt almost cruel. She blinked hard, adjusting. Her eyes stung. The boy squinted too, shielding his face with a hand, the other still gripping hers as though the world would rip him away if he let go. The silence outside was vast. No gunfire, no orders, just wind, dry and restless, moving across the skeletal remains of abandoned buildings. But she knew better. Silence never lasted. "Move," she said quietly. He nodded. They ran. The terrain beyond the compound was scar tissue. Buildings shattered, streets buried under rubble, the skeletons of vehicles rusting in place. Windows gaped like hollow eyes. Every shadow threatened movement. Her training whispered routes, how to break line of sight, how to use cover, how to disappear. She followed instinct, guiding the boy through collapsed walls, narrow alleys, beneath the jagged ribs of bombed-out structures. The medic's absence clawed at her. His loss was fresh, raw, pulsing with every step. She almost expected to hear his cough behind her, his dry humor sparking at the wrong moment. But there was only wind. She pushed it down, grieve later, survive now. By dusk, they reached the edge of a ruined industrial yard. Rusting tanks leaned against each other like drunks, the ground slick with oil and ash. They crouched inside the skeleton of a collapsed warehouse. The boy curled close, arms around his knees. She leaned against cold steel, scanning through the fractured beams at the horizon. In the distance, movement, figures. Too disciplined for scavengers, too clean for rebels. Her jaw tightened. Command had sent more, not to save, to hunt. She lowered her rifle, resting the scope against the crook of her arm, glassing them from afar. A three-man team, careful, methodical, moving in the same direction they were. Her stomach sank. The hunt wasn't wide, it was precise, they knew. Her earpiece crackled. "Specialist," the voice was calm, almost gentle. "You've taken something that isn't yours." She didn't reply. The voice pressed on. "You've killed friendlies, you've abandoned your squad, but it's not too late. Bring the subject in and this disappears. We'll make sure your record is clean. No one has to know." The boy glanced at her. His eyes were sharp, too knowing for someone his age. He couldn't hear the voice, but he understood enough from her silence. She pressed a finger to her earpiece. Finally, she spoke. Her words were low, steady. "I already know." Then she cut the line. The silence that followed was heavier than any order. The boy shifted closer. For the first time, he spoke without waiting for her. "They'll never stop." She turned to him. His face was shadowed in the fading light, eyes hollow but fierce. "They've been here before," he said softly. "Different uniforms, same words, they always come. They say they're helping. They take children, some for fighting, some for other things. They don't come back." Her breath caught. She felt her chest tighten as he looked up at her. "I ran, I hid, I thought I was the last." His voice cracked. He pressed his lips together hard, fighting it. "Maybe I am." She reached for him before she thought. Her gloved hand brushed his shoulder. He flinched at first, then leaned, trembling, against her. The war had carved him deeper than she'd known, and command wanted to finish what the world had already done to him. Her silence broke again. "You're not the last," she whispered. The words surprised her, but once said they felt like truth. Night fell heavy. The ruined yard groaned in the wind. Somewhere, a loose sheet of steel clattered like distant gunfire. She kept her rifle ready, eyes sharp through the scope, scanning for the three shadows that hunted them. But her mind churned. The boy's story wasn't his alone, it was hers too. Different shapes, same wound. She had signed papers, sworn oaths, promised to serve something greater. And in return, command had carved out her voice, her choice, her humanity. Now, sitting in the dark beside a child hunted by the same machine, she wondered if her silence had ever been loyalty or just surrender. The thought ached. Near midnight, footsteps scraped, low, careful, close. She froze. The boy stirred, but she pressed a hand gently against him. His body went still. Through the broken beams, a silhouette passed, then another, the hunters. They swept their flashlights across the yard, beams slicing through the dark like searchlights. She ducked lower, steadying her breath. One beam passed inches from their hiding spot. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Not yet. The hunters moved past, boots crunching faintly on gravel. She waited, long, until the night settled again. Only then did she release the breath she'd been holding. The boy whispered, "You could have shot." She glanced at him. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, wide and questioning. She shook her head. "Noise carries," she murmured, "and sometimes silence kills faster." But inside, she knew it wasn't just strategy. It was choice. Every bullet meant something now. Every life taken carried weight she couldn't shake. And she didn't want him to see her as just another uniform with endless ammunition. They moved before dawn. Following the boy's directions, they wound deeper into the ruined district, away from open ground, into what had once been a neighborhood. Houses broken but still standing, walls painted with faded colors, toys scattered like ghosts of another life. The boy paused at one threshold, staring at a broken swing in the yard. She noticed, his lips parted as though to speak, then closed again. She didn't press. Some memories weren't ready to be spoken. But she stayed close, letting the silence breathe between them without forcing it. By midday, her water was gone. The boy's stomach growled, quiet but sharp. They scavenged through ruins, cupboards long empty, cans rusted through, packets torn open by rats. Finally, in the wreck of a corner shop, she found a dented tin of beans sealed tight. She cracked it open with her knife, dividing it in silence. The boy ate slowly, eyes down. Halfway through, he pushed the can back toward her. "You need it more." She studied him, thin arms, hollow cheeks, a boy who had carried hunger longer than most soldiers carried rifles. She pushed it back. "Eat." He hesitated, then obeyed. Something small eased inside her chest, not because he ate, because he listened, not to command, to her. It wasn't authority, it was trust. That night, the hunters found them again. She heard it before she saw the faint rasp of boots on stone, the click of a safety disengaged. She pulled the boy close, pushing him behind a collapsed wall. The beam of a flashlight sliced across the rubble, climbing, and then stopped on her face. Contact. Gunfire erupted, deafening, sparks tearing through concrete. She dropped low, dragging the boy with her, bullets shredding the air where his head had been. Her rifle barked back, sharp and precise. One hunter fell. Two shadows remained, splitting, circling. Her pulse roared. Her breath ragged. She moved fast, covering the boy with her body, shifting position with every burst. One shadow flanked left. She tracked, fired, saw him crumple. The last pressed forward hard, relentless. His flashlight blinded, pinning them. She rolled, grabbed a shard of broken glass and hurled it. The light shattered, plunging them into sudden blackness. Silence. Then a grunt, a stumble. She moved, rifle raised, fired once. The last shadow dropped. The boy's breath shuddered against her side. She pulled him close, holding him as the gunpowder haze thinned. They were alive, barely. But she knew now, command wouldn't stop. They would keep sending more, not because of the boy, not because of rebels. Because she had spoken. And in the eyes of command, silence broken was treason. As dawn rose, she watched the boy sleep against her pack, his small face finally soft, free of tension. She brushed a strand of hair from his forehead with a trembling hand. And for the first time, she allowed the thought to take full shape. She wasn't just keeping him alive. She was keeping herself human. The mountains rose like jagged teeth against the horizon. She stared at them from the shattered rooftop where they sheltered, dawn bleeding slow across the sky. For the first time in days, the city lay behind them. Ahead was open ground, harsh, exposed, but freedom if they could reach it. The boy shifted beside her, blinking sleep from his eyes. He followed her gaze, lips parting. "You're taking me there?" he asked. She hesitated, the truth pressed heavy. The mountains weren't safety, they were only distance. But she nodded, yes. Because sometimes hope was the only weapon left. They moved before the sun climbed high. The streets grew quieter as the ruins thinned, the echo of war fading into the rasp of dry wind and gravel. Her every sense stretched taut. She knew command wouldn't quit. Not now. Not when she'd chosen voice over silence. And sure enough, mid-morning, the sky growled. A low drone, mechanical, circling. She shoved the boy against a half-toppled wall, covering him with her body as a reconnaissance drone swept overhead. Its lens glinted, scanning. The hum of its engine crawled across her skin. She held her breath, waited. It passed, but not without marking them. She knew it in her gut. They pressed harder, slipping into gullies, moving through brush that clawed at their skin. Hours stretched into burning legs, dry throats, aching silence. At midday, they stumbled into the skeleton of an old farmhouse. Walls crumbling, roof torn away, but shade enough to rest. The boy collapsed against the cracked foundation, panting. She crouched nearby, scanning the ridges. That was when the radio on her belt hissed alive. "Specialist." The voice was calm, deliberate. "The lieutenant, we see you." Her blood chilled. "You've run long enough," the voice continued. "But you know how this ends. Out here you'll starve, he'll die, and your name will vanish from every stone it's written on." Her hand hovered over the switch. The boy's eyes found hers, silent, asking. She pressed transmit. "You're not erasing me, not him." The silence on the other end was longer this time. Then a quiet laugh. "You still think you chose him, that this is about mercy, about rebellion." The voice hardened. "But you never asked why he matters." Her breath caught. The boy looked away, jaw tightening. Something inside her stilled. "What do you mean?" she asked. The lieutenant's tone sharpened, every word precise. "He's not a civilian, not just a survivor. He's classified, asset red." Her chest locked tight. The boy's face turned, pale in the shadow. He didn't deny it. The lieutenant pressed on. "Born of a program you were never cleared to know. He isn't a child you saved. He's a liability you stole. Bring him back alive or we erase you both." The line cut. The wind howled through the farmhouse ruins. Dust rose like smoke. She turned to the boy. His eyes brimmed with something she hadn't seen before. Not just fear, guilt. She swallowed hard. "Tell me." His voice trembled. "I didn't lie, not really, I just didn't say." He hugged his knees tight, his words spilling fast, breaking. "They came years ago, not just soldiers, scientists, doctors, they took us. They said we were special, but we were just children." Her chest ached. "They tested, measured, hurt." His voice cracked. "The others died, I didn't, and they called it success." His eyes lifted, wide and drowning. "That's why they want me, not because I'm me, because I'm proof." She couldn't breathe. The medic's last words echoed. "Don't let them turn him into a file." Now she understood. She rose, packing the fractured floor, her boots crunching glass. The boy's confession tangled with every doubt, every crack in her silence. He wasn't just a child caught in war. He was the war, the kind they never admitted existed. Command hadn't sent them into that compound for rebels. They had sent them to erase evidence, to erase him. Her stomach twisted. Every mission, every order she had carried without question, how many had been lies? She pressed her palms against the wall until her knuckles whitened. Her chest heaved. The boy's voice was small behind her. "You hate me now." Her head whipped around. He shrank under her stare. And something in her broke. She crossed the space, dropped to her knees before him. She gripped his shoulders, firm but not harsh. "Listen to me," she said, voice shaking. "I don't care what they call you. I don't care what they did. You're not their proof. You're not their file. You're a boy. That's enough." His lips trembled. A single tear slid down his cheek. She brushed it away with her thumb, rough but gentle. "You're not alone anymore." For a long moment he stared at her, searching for cracks. Then his small arms wrapped around her neck, fierce and desperate. She held him tight. For the first time in years, her silence didn't feel like armor or chains. It felt like a vow. They left the farmhouse at dusk. The mountains loomed closer, but so did pursuit. She could feel it in the air, the pressure tightening. And sure enough, just before nightfall, the sky split with the sound of rotor blades. Helicopters. Searchlights speared the ground, carving white scars across the dark. Voices thundered through loudspeakers. Specialist, surrender. You are outnumbered. You are surrounded. The boy is not yours. The boy clung to her sleeve. She pulled him into the shadows of a broken aqueduct, pressing low as the beams swept overhead. Her heart pounded. Options shrank. Every instinct screamed fight, but every memory of the medic, every scar inside her, whispered something else. Not fight, not run, something harder. Defy. The helicopters circled, dropping soldiers along the ridges, figures in black descending like predators. The hunt was closing. The boy's breath was ragged, fast. We can't, his voice broke. We can't get away. She turned to him, steady, fierce. Yes, we can, because we don't need to run. We just need to vanish. He stared. Her plan was reckless, impossible, but so was surviving this long. She studied the ridges, the lights, the patterns of search. She saw gaps, small, fleeting, but real. She grabbed his hand. Trust me. And for the first time, she spoke words she had once sworn she'd never say again. We go silent. They moved like ghosts, sliding between beams, timing every step with the sweep of light, dropping flat against earth when rotors thundered low. Her training became their cloak. Every trick command had drilled into her. She now wielded against them. Step by step, breath by breath, they slipped past. But it couldn't last. At the base of the ridge, a soldier spotted them. A shout, a flare of gunfire. She spun, returning fire, muzzle flash ripping the dark. The boy ducked low, hands over his head. The soldier dropped, but more thundered near. Her heart slammed. They couldn't outrun, not this many. She made her choice. She pushed the boy toward a fissure in the ridge, a narrow crevice splitting the rock. Go, crawl, don't stop until you see stars. His eyes widened. No, not without you. She grabbed his face, forcing his gaze on hers. I'll be right behind, but if they catch us both, it ends. Understand? Tears spilled down his cheeks, but he nodded. She shoved him toward the crack. He vanished into shadow. Then she turned, raised her rifle, and stood her ground. Gunfire lit the ridge. Shadows closed. Her body moved like instinct, shots sharp, precise, each one carving seconds for the boy. She bled, she burned, but she did not fall. Every breath was defiance. Every shot was voice. When her last magazine clicked empty, she hurled the rifle aside, pulled her knife. The soldiers closed. And still she did not break. Above, hidden in the crevice, the boy crawled until the rock split wide and the stars opened above him. He turned, breathless, trembling. Behind him the night roared with gunfire, shouts, thunder. Her voice did not reach him, but her vow did. She was still fighting. For him. For herself. For something bigger than both. The stars burned cold above the ridge, sharp and endless. The boy crawled free of the fissure, hands scraped raw, lungs tearing with each breath. Dust clung to his face, but he hardly noticed. Behind him, the mountain shook with war, gunfire, shouts, the metallic roar of pursuit. He spun, eyes wide, searching the dark split of stone, waiting for her to appear. But only echoes came. And still he waited. Down in the gully, she was fire against a storm. Her knife gleamed as she moved, fluid, vicious, silent. Every strike carved another second, another breath, another heartbeat for the boy above. But numbers drowned skill. For every soldier she dropped, two more advanced. Shadows pressed in from every side, rifles flashing, voices barking orders. Her body screamed. Blood streaked her arm, her leg. Breath tore ragged from her throat, but her silence held, sharp as a blade. And then a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Stand down." The soldiers froze. Through the haze of dust and light, the lieutenant strode forward, helmet off, face carved in steel. He stopped a few paces away, eyes locking on her. "You've done enough damage, specialist," he said. His tone was even, but his hand rested easy on his sidearm. "You can't win this." Her knife dripped red at her side. She didn't move. He tilted his head. "You've been loyal longer than most. You understand what's at stake. Give me the boy and I'll make sure your record stays clean. No tribunal, no erasure, just silence." The word cut deep. She spat blood onto the dirt. "Silence isn't yours to give." The lieutenant's gaze hardened. "You think you're saving him. You're not. Without us, he's nothing but a ghost. We made him. We own him." Her grip tightened on the knife. And then he said the one thing that broke whatever fragile thread remained. "And if he dies out here, you die for nothing." The boy crouched in the fissure above, heart hammering. He heard every word. The voices carried sharp in the night. Her answer came, low and fierce. "Better nothing than this." The knife flashed. She lunged. The world shrank to chaos. Her blade slashed, soldiers fired. The lieutenant staggered back with a curse, blood seeping from his arm. She fought like a storm breaking chains, raw and relentless, every strike a vow. But they overwhelmed her. A rifle butt cracked against her ribs. A boot smashed her knee. She fell hard, knife skittering into the dirt. The lieutenant loomed above her, breathing hard, pistol leveled at her chest. He sneered, loyalty wasted. The shot rang out. The night went still. The boy's cry tore through the stars. He stumbled from the fissure, sliding down the rocks, tripping, falling, scrambling toward her. Soldiers raised rifles, but the lieutenant barked, "Hold." The boy dropped to his knees beside her. Her chest rose shallow. Blood spread dark across her uniform, but her eyes opened, finding him. "Don't," he sobbed, clutching her hand. "Don't leave." Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, to break her vow fully, to give him words. But breath failed. Instead, she gripped his hand hard, pressing something into his palm. The dog tags she'd worn all her years in service. Her gaze burned into his, fierce even as it dimmed. Then her hand stilled. Her silence was complete. The boy's scream shattered the ridge. He clutched her body, shaking, tears streaking his face. The soldiers stood unmoving, the lieutenant watching with cold detachment. Finally, the officer raised his pistol again. "Take him, alive." But the boy lifted his head. And something changed. His grief burned into something sharper, brighter. Not just pain, defiance. He rose, clutching the dog tags in his fist. His small frame shook, but his eyes, her eyes, stared back at the lieutenant with unflinching fire. "No." The soldiers hesitated. The lieutenant frowned. "You don't have a choice." But the boy's voice carried, strong despite the tremor. "Yes, I do." He turned and bolted, darting into the shadows, slipping through cracks of rock only a child could fit. Shots fired, but they struck empty stone. He vanished into the night. Days later, the mountains stood silent. And in a small valley beyond the ridges, a boy staggered into an abandoned shepherd's hut. His body was weak, his clothes torn, but his eyes burned with the memory of her. He set the dog tags on the floor before him. Fingers tracing the worn steel, he whispered the words she never said but always carried. "You're not alone." The war raged on elsewhere. Armies clashed. Command issued orders. Files were erased. But in the cracks between, a child survived. Not as an asset, not as a ghost. As a voice. Every step he took carried her vow. Every breath defied their silence. And somewhere in the endless mountains, the echo of her last stand remained not as death, but as a story. One whispered among ruins. One written in silence. One that would never die. The end.